Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
Holy moly. Holy H moly. Holy Herbert moly. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. This week is probably the biggest week of geek since I've started this show, which is kind of hard to imagine because naturally I'm excitable. I'm an excitable person when it comes to anything dorky or geeky or nerdy or scientific-y. And doesn't my voice sound a little bit more broadcaster this week? It's because I've had a sore throat. I've been fighting off a sore throat. And there's a little bit of congestion going on, which has given me a little bit more of a chest voice. But back to this week of Geek Therapy, this week in geek. Guess freaking what? Star Trek The Next Generation turned 30 this week. The week of September 28th is the week that TNG first aired on television. The first Star Trek series since the original series. And maybe it's just my generation. I think TNG is the best series so far. Now, the new Star Trek has just started on CBS, and I haven't been able to watch any episodes yet because I'm going to confess something to you. I don't watch a whole lot of cable TV anymore. And I don't think I'm alone in that boat. I think most of us have our Netflix and our Hulus and our Amazons and our YouTubes, and that's just the way things have gone in media consumption. So I know CBS has an app where you can watch there's new Star Trek episodes, but I don't have it. I'm going to watch it one way or the other. It's super exciting. It's super neat. The series that's currently on CBS takes the story pre-original Star Trek. So it's a few years before, what is it? Several years before, Captain Kirk and all that. So Star Trek Discovery. It looks so cool. It looks so cool. But yeah, TNG turns 30 this week. And I thought a good way to pay homage to the next generation, to Star Trek, was to share my geek story about how I got into Star Trek. For years, well, let me go back a little bit. My first introduction to Star Trek was, which Star Trek was it? Oh my goodness, I am probably making a lot of Trekkies out there. Wince, you're not a real Trekkie. I'll never claim to be an actual real Trekkie. I just thoroughly enjoy Star Trek. Which Star Trek was it where they're saving the whales? Because Leonard Nimoy was very, very passionate about conservation. So I believe he directed this Star Trek film. Is it 2? Is that the one where they go to San Francisco, or is it 4? I want to say it's 4. Star Trek, the movie 4. Anyway, so I remember being exposed to that when I was little, and I couldn't really get into Star Trek when I was little. Not just because it was so scientific and over my head and all that, but one of the Star Trek movies in which they put that little bug, that little alien, into the guy's ear. You remember that one? That scarred me from Star Trek for a long time. My dad showed me that movie when I was a kid, and that cockroach-looking thing, or whatever it was, that bug that bored itself into that guy's ear to take over his body. That freaked me out. That was very freaky. And even in The Next Generation, there was an episode, one of the early episodes, where the bug crawls down the people's throats and takes over their body. That was freaky. That was super violent. This was before the rating systems. So that episode of TNG season whatever, episode whatever, I don't have it memorized. That was very violent because the episode ends, and I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to spoil it, but if you haven't seen Star Trek at this point, Next Generation at this point, then it's 30 years old, obviously. The end of the episode where they blow the guy's freaking head off, that was amazingly violent. And even I saw that episode for the first time recently in my life, and I was like, what? They showed that on TV? That's pretty creepy. That's pretty graphic. But I guess it's tame compared to the stuff they show nowadays on TV. But still, like, this came out. This episode originally aired in like 1989 or whatever. I don't think it was 87. That's when the show first came out. I don't think it was the first season, or maybe it was. But it was late 80s, definitely. They set the phasers on the guy's head and blows his head off. And it was striking because I wasn't expecting that. I was like, they showed that on TV? Anyways, so I was first exposed to Star Trek as a kid because my dad was really into Star Trek. If you had just met my dad, or you knew him casually, there's no way you would have pegged him as a Trekkie, but he was. He grew up with the show in the 60s, and he used to, with the VCR, and even with his Betamax, he would record the episodes of TNG, The Next Generation. So my dad was super into it. So I was exposed to it as a kid, kind of fell off from it because the stuff I had seen as a kid freaked me out. Like I said, it wasn't just because it was super sciencey and over my head. It was just because visually and subject matterly and alien bugs boring themselves into human ears freaked me out. Like, I would sleep with earplugs for a little while because I didn't want any cockroaches burrowing into my ear. That was my first exposure to Star Trek. So, fast forward. How did I get into Star Trek? Well, my dad passed away in October of 2013, and I was watching Netflix one day, watch Netflix every day, and you think to yourself, do I watch Netflix every day? Yeah, you do. You don't even think about it. Netflix has become so entwined in most of our lives that you don't even think that. And when you turn on the TV, you're turning on Netflix. Did I watch Netflix yesterday? Yes, you did. That's where we're at. You don't even think about it. It's subconscious. You just watch Netflix. Anyway, so I had Netflix on, and they had released The Next Generation onto Netflix. So, again, this is right after my dad died. And I was like, you know what? I haven't really revisited Star Trek very recently in my life, very often in my life. I remember my dad did take us to see First Contact, was it? In the theaters, Star Trek 7 or something like that. It was the Next Generation cast. Data was in it, and Lieutenant Troy, and Captain Jean-Luc Picard, and of course. And I remember thinking, oh, that movie's really cool. The Star Trek movies are cool to me now. Like, the modern Star Trek movies were cool to me, but I never got into the canon of Star Trek. So after my dad died, it came on to Netflix, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll just give it a shot. I'm probably not going to like it, but my dad really liked it. What is there to it? You know, maybe I can be closer to my dad now, posthumously, if I just watch Star Trek to see what was he so into it. I'm not going to watch soap operas. He really loved Days of Our Lives or whatever. I don't feel like I will get closer to my father by watching soap operas. That was the only soap opera he ever watched, which again was, knowing my dad, it was kind of weird. You would never peg him for somebody who watched a soap opera, but he almost watched that religiously, just like Star Trek. So I started watching Star Trek. And from the very first episode, for some reason, regardless of feeling like it could get me closer to my father, it grabbed me in a way that I wasn't expecting it to grab me. I loved the logic of it all. I loved the bright future that it promised. And it wasn't just the logic. It was that anyone who's watched TNG knows it wasn't just the logic. It was the constant it was the constant battle is the constant yin yang between logic and human emotion. Remember the episode where Data's asking Riker, why would a human trust another human knowing that other human can hurt them? And Riker's like, that's what being human's all about. That's one of the joys of being human is trusting another human, knowing that your friend can hurt you. And that's something we've all experienced. So it was things like that. That was the reason why Star Trek grabbed me. Gene Roddenberry was a well-known atheist, and he was cuckoo in a lot of ways. He was pretty cuckoo, you know. Just because someone was atheist didn't mean that they were all of a sudden Einstein or somebody really smart and calculated and measured. Nope. Gene Roddenberry was a cuckoo atheist, just like there's cuckoo religious people. So a lot of Roddenberry's visions for the future and ideas about the present are far-fetched, a bit utopian, and at the same time flawed. He very much sexualized women. I'm not calling him a womanizer or anything like that, not by any stretch of the imagination, but Spiner. Oh, why am I blanking on his first name? The guy who played Data, Brent Spiner. I think that's right, Brent Spiner. And I know I'm going to cringe when I go back and correct myself. And he's one of my favorite actors of all time. He was in Independence Day and a bunch of other movies, you know, doing cameos. But I think it was Brent Spiner. He was on a panel once, and they were asking him, wasn't it refreshing that Star Trek was such a science, so sciencey and so logical, and such a calculated vision of the future, that it was sort of better and more astute than other shows, and it was much higher class than other shows because it didn't divulge or didn't devolve into just sex and violence and stuff like that. And Brent Spiner just laughed at the interview and said, Star Trek in a lot of ways was a spaghetti western. You're just in space shooting phasers off. And yes, there was lots of merit to the shows, being logical and presenting arguments and being very respectful of other people's ways of life. Even though Roddenberry was an atheist, the show of Star Trek, even though that in the future religion didn't exist anymore, they were still very respectful of these planets they visit, these cultures they visit. They were very respectful of these planets' religious views. So there was not this idea that you couldn't be religious and be logical at the same time. They find a good blend of it, and it was very respectful to everybody's views. But that being said, Spiner's like, they're still shooting their phasers off in space. It's still a spaghetti western in a lot of ways. Picard knocked people out, not all the time, but several times. Riker got into lots of fights, those corny choreographed fights, super stupid. But to say that TNG's merits were in its logic and its acceptance, that is all true. But it was still very entertaining as far as sex and violence goes. There's a few risque episodes. They even bordered on the homosexuality issue, which nobody was talking about in the late 80s, early 90s on sitcom TV. That kind of came later, especially not a show like Star Trek. But anyways, yeah, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Stick around. I drove an RS7 last week. A new video game's coming out. A classic game that I kind of grew up with is coming out. There's just so much more stuff. Google turned 19 this week. Google's 19 years old. 19 years old. Google. That's crazy. So anyways, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Be sure to stick around. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, and Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. Come visit me. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am Johnny Hemberger, your mental curator for this evening. Sorry, I've been battling off a sore throat or a little bit of a cold this week, but it's given my voice a more sexy timbre, I think. Anyways, back to geek stuff. And I had a geek conniption this past week. Sarah and I went to one of her cousin's weddings. It was one wedding. We went to a wedding in Missouri. And her uncle had... I'm just going to cut right to the chase. Her uncle had an RS7, an Audi RS7. And for those of you who don't know, you don't know. But I'm going to tell you. And for those of you who do know, you know. It is a car that you'd see driving down the road and you think, oh, that's a nice looking car. But you wouldn't think much of it unless you're in the know. Then you'd see it and it'd be like, is that an RS7? That is an RS7. That is one of the fastest cars Audi makes, period. It is faster than most of their R8s. This is a 4-door family car. It's designed to move 4 to 5 human adults in comfort. It is designed to put your kids in the back seat and take them to school. Yet, it will eat a Lamborghini alive. It will eat a Corvette alive. It will eat almost everything else on the road for breakfast. This is a big 4-door family car. Base model, 560-something horsepower. And Audi and Volkswagen are notorious for underselling that horsepower amount. They're usually 20 to 50 horsepower more than the spec sheet says. So the paper says 560. It's probably pushing closer to 600 base model. You can get like performance packages of it that bumps the horsepower up even further. But just as a baseline, it's around 600. 600 horsepower in a family sedan. Twin turbo 4-liter V8. It's the same V8 that is in my vehicle. My vehicle is the 4.2 V8. No, it's just naturally aspirated, no turbos or anything like that. And my vehicle puts out 354 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. The RS7 is they've shaved off 0.2 of a liter and added 2 massive turbos on it. Well, not one massive. One is massive, the other is not very massive. It's basically to a big turbo and a little turbo to eliminate turbo lag. And let me tell you, I drove it. There is absolutely no perceived turbo lag in this beast. It is bone-jarring savagery off the line. It is so unbelievably fast. If you weren't prepared for it, it would probably snap your neck back and give you whiplash just to start. And I wasn't even pushing this thing hard. I didn't really hardly engage the launch mode. I had my foot down on the brake pedal and they gave it a little gas and then just lifted off the brake pedal, and holy God in heaven, the way this thing moves forward through time and space. Engage warp. That's what it feels like. It was the closest thing to warp that the average person will feel, and I feel honored and privileged to have the opportunity to drive such a vehicle. The quickness at which you blink your eye and the speedometer is at 0, and then all of a sudden at 120. I will not say kilometers or miles per hour. I'll let you use your imagination. Screw it. 120 miles an hour. You should not measure the 0 to 60 time in this car. You shouldn't measure the quickness in 0 to 60. You should measure it in 0 to 120. That would be a more accurate way to measure it. Because the way this thing clicks off triple digits is frightening. It's staggering. It's awe-inspiring. Like I said before, it is savage. And part of the scary part is that, like I said, you're looking at the speedometer says 0. You put your foot down. Next time you look down, and seemingly a fraction of a second later, it says 120. It inside the cabin, cruising, there's no way you'd tell it was 120. The only way you could tell it's 120 is by seeing the speedometer and seeing how fast the white lines on the highway are flying by. And it catches up with you quick. And if I did not pull my foot off the accelerator because there was a curve coming up in this wide open highway, let me just say, there was no other cars around. I brought it back down to the speed limit if there was any cars around. And again, I did not cruise at 120. It was just a short burst. Holy crap. So I could scream and pee my pants. Whoa. Then you slow back down to keep it at around 70. Anyways, if you keep your foot buried, you'd find the governor pretty quick. And the owner, Sarah's uncle, I asked him, I was like, so do you know where the governor is? Because I know where it is in my car. He's like, no, I don't know where the governor is. But I think that's because his wife was nearby. And she was nearby because she goes, what's a governor? And we're like, it's the thing that regulates your speed. It means you can't go faster than a certain predetermined speed that the car dictates. In my vehicle, the governor comes on, and let me look in the camera here. My governor engages, so I've heard, at 155 miles an hour, which begged another discussion. One of my friends has a Dodge Challenger RT, and the governor in her car, it's a lady, in her car, the governor kicks in at 110. This is the performance model, and I don't know if it's the same for all RTs, but for this car, the governor kicked in at 110, which in one hand is stupid in the vein of you paid extra money to have this performance version of this vehicle. Why is the governor set so low? On the other hand, ain't nobody got to do 110. Ain't nobody got to do 100. Ain't nobody got to do 90. Only that I know of in Texas, we have speed limits that go up to 85 miles an hour. So there's no reason why a governor should even be at 110. That's excessive. But it's also stupid in a performance vehicle. Like, you're paying for that extra performance. You're paying to be able to go faster than 110. So why is it capped at 110? So it begs the question, in my vehicle, 155 miles per hour is the governor in the United States of America. What road will you ever get up to 155 miles an hour on regularly? Now, I'm not condoning or saying or challenging anybody. I can do 155. I can do 155 on my way home from work. Stop it. You're stupid. Don't do it. That's my official statement. Do not challenge this governor discussion to see how fast, to see where your governor kicks in. I'm sure most guys listening right now are just like nodding. I know where my governor kicks in. So anyways, governor at 155, that's ridiculous. You know what the governor is on my vehicle in Europe? In Germany, the governor doesn't kick in until 174 miles an hour. And apparently, I can go to the dealership and raise my governor from 155 to 174. Where would I even be able to tap in to 174 miles an hour? Some people are saying, sorry for the sniffles, some people are saying, well, you could use 174 miles per hour on the track. To my knowledge, around Houston, where I live, I don't think, and anyone can get on Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook and clue me in on this. Anybody can email me, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. Anybody could go on this YouTube, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, and type in the answer to this in case I don't know. But to my knowledge, around Houston, there isn't a racetrack where you can get up to 174 miles an hour in a pedestrian car. I would consider my vehicle a pedestrian vehicle. If I was to race, I don't think there's a racetrack around where I can reach 155 in my vehicle. So why is the governor so high? Well, because of the Autobahn. I'm nowhere near an Autobahn. I appreciate, and it's cool bragging rights to be like, yeah, my governor kicks in at 155. But when are you ever going to use that? When are you ever going to see 155 miles an hour, let alone 174 miles an hour, even on a racetrack? I don't think there's a straightaway on a Houston racetrack long enough for a pedestrian vehicle to reach 155. Let's say you have the Audi RS7. Is there a straight, and I want you listeners to fill me in on this, is there a straight long enough in or around Houston on a racetrack, on a legal racetrack, where even an RS7 can get up to 155? Where even a Lamborghini can get up to 155, or a Ferrari, or a Bugatti Veyron, or Chiron. Actually, I think that might be able to hit 155 on a relatively short straightaway. But I don't know. You tell me. I haven't been to any racetracks around Houston. I don't know. Maybe there is a place where you can get your pedestrian vehicle up to those speeds. So my point is, all I was getting at with this segment is, I drove an RS7, and it was a cathartic, spiritual moment for me as a geek. I haven't even begun to talk about the technology in this vehicle. Unreal. The car weighs like 5,000 pounds. It's like I said, it's a family sedan. So it seems to defy the laws of physics that it's able to move that quickly at that stability. Oh, and it burbled. When you let your foot off the gas and you have it in manual mode with the flappy paddles, keep it in second gear, and then you let off the accelerator. Oh! Hurt me! Damn, that's awesome. I cussed on Geek Therapy Radio. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. I'm going to take these few minutes of a break to go splash some cold water on my face and calm down off of my recollections of driving the RS7. Oh, it was great. It was great. It was great. It was great. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Stick around. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, still your mental curator for this evening and every evening you choose to spend with Geek Therapy Radio, or your morning commute, or your commute home from work in the evening, like I just started out with. Well, you know what? My show airs on the actual terrestrial radio here on 950 KPRC AM in Houston, an iHeart radio station, at 12:06 a.m. Sunday morning. I like to think of it as midnight Saturday night. But that's neither here nor there, and maybe one day soon I will be put on a better hour. Maybe I can get my show on middle of the afternoon, Saturday or Sunday, right before or after What's on Tap Radio with James Simpson. What's on Tap Radio, where they talk about beer. Of course, that's going to be a popular show. And it sounds like I'm making a segue into talking about beer here on Geek Therapy Radio. Beer here! Beer here! Butt scratch up! My brain. But no, I'm not going to talk about beer. What I'm going to talk about, there's a couple of games that are coming out that I'm kind of psyched about. Oh, there's like 3 of them. I just thought about Ace Combat 7. Ace Combat 7! Oh! Ace Combat is one of the most underrated video game series in modern times. It's a fighter pilot simulator, and it's great. Ace Combat Assault Horizon, meh. They try to make it too Call of Duty. Nobody wants to do dogfights on rails. That doesn't mean doing dogfights on cocaine. What rails mean in a video game is that you enter dogfight mode and you no longer control, for the most part, the direction of the aircraft. The game takes over, keeping you behind an enemy fighter. And all you have to do is press the button to shoot them. That's stupid. Ace Combat was always a simulator. A straight up simulator with a video game element with a story in there, and it was great. Ace Combat 4 for PS2, that's where I first started playing. Wonderful. It's still good to this day. But I'm not chewing up all my time to talk about Ace Combat. That is a game that Ace Combat 7, I'm very excited for that to come out, and it's becoming an increasing challenge for me not to buy a PS4 because I still haven't played The Last Guardian yet. Ace Combat 7's coming out. And again, sorry for these sniffles, but I need to get a PS4 now. I guess I just have to get a PS4. But there's a game coming out that I want to tell a little story about. It's Road Rash. Road Rash is coming out for the PC. A new Road Rash. You may remember Road Rash on the Sega. I remember Road Rash 64 for the Nintendo 64, and that's the story I'm going to tell right now, because I'm going to talk about my friend Nathan and how he tried to kill me IRL in real life playing Road Rash. Not with a lead pipe to the face, not by sticking a pool cue through the spokes of my motorcycle like you're doing in Road Rash, but Road Rash 64 came out around the time that my lung collapsed when I was a teenager for the first time. My lung collapsed twice in my life, both lungs. But my left lung collapsed 98% when I was 17 years old, which is around the time I got the DeLorean too. Anyways, so I finally get home from the hospital. They reinflate the lung and blah, blah, blah. I was basically tethered to the wall of the hospital on a vacuum line that was using reverse air pressure to suck my lung back open. So I was tethered to the wall. I couldn't really move. So anyways, I got discharged from the hospital finally after it seemed like a lifetime. It was about 8 days. And the doctors and the surgeons are like, okay, all you need to do now to recover is don't lift anything heavier than a newspaper. Just try not to move really in general. Don't laugh. Don't sneeze. Don't cough. And be very careful when you poop. Taking a dump in the hospital with a collapsed lung was difficult. And I'm just going to explain it because it's a little scientific. It's not super dirty, but you use your diaphragm a bit when you're dropping the kids off at the pool, let's just say. And when you're squeezing, all you're doing with a collapsed lung is pushing air out of the lung. You're just bubbling air out the lung. So I'd push, and just instead of pushing feces out of my body, I was pushing air out of the gaping hole in my lung. So I had another way to put it. Oh, geez. I had no leverage, if you will. So anyways, the doctors discharged me like, all you got to do is just don't do anything. The main thing is don't laugh. And I was like, that's going to kill me. Because my friends, immediately, I'm going to tell them, the doctor says not to make me laugh. I know all they're going to do is try to make me laugh. So I'm home, still not going to school because I can't do anything. And I'm playing Road Rash 64. And Nathan comes over and I tell Nathan, like immediately, Nathan, if you make me laugh, I'm going to die. The doctor said if I laugh, I'm going to die. So please, for the love of God, don't make me laugh. That was a big mistake. We were playing Road Rash 64 and he's doing all these crazy things in the game. Road Rash 64 is one of just the funnest games ever. So we're doing these silly things in the game, putting in these codes to make the motorcycles go 400 miles an hour, and you could get into wrecks and your rider would just ragdoll through the air. And so I'm sitting there trying not to laugh, and he's trying to make me laugh. Nathan is trying to make me laugh. So the way I'm laughing with my collapsed lung, knowing that if I just go I could die, He's making me laugh. Nathan's making me laugh, and I'm just going, That's how I was laughing. I hate you. Nathan, I hate you. I'm going to haunt you. If I die, I swear to Jesus, I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your life. That's how I'm trying not to die laughing, basically. And I have to thank Road Rash for that. And by the way, this is probably my single greatest segment of Geek Therapy Radio ever. When I do a best of, I'm just going to do this segment 3 of episode 29. I'm just going to air this segment in perpetuity. Perpetuity. Pituitary. Okay, so Road Rash is coming out for the PC, and I'm super excited, super stoked. Another game, as a side note, because I have a couple seconds left in this segment, Project Cars 2 is coming out, and I still haven't really played too much of Project Cars 1. You know why? Because when Project Cars 1 was announced, to my understanding, it was going to have like almost every car ever made in it. Kind of like Gran Turismo, but like even more cars. I thought I was going to buy Project Cars off of Steam for $60, which I did, and I was going to be able to choose my old 1994 Volkswagen Passat and paint it red and cruise around in a video game with the same car I had in high school. I was excited for that. I thought Nathan would be able to go into the game and choose a 1988 Acura Integra and slam the deck lid down on a tiny Indian's head. Carl. I should do a Geek Therapy Radio episode where it's just old stories of childhood. So to recap this segment, we talked about Road Rash 64, Road Rash on the PC. We talked about taking dumps with the collapsed lung is hard. And on that note, we'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio, a final segment of this week. This show is already my favorite ever. Not because the doo-doo anecdotes, but because this Star Trek turns 30. I drove an RS7. Road Rash is coming out for the PC. What an awesome week to be a geek. Oh, we're going to talk about some literature. We're going to geek out about literature for the first time on Geek Therapy Radio here in the next segment, because it's going to be a short segment because I'm chewing up too much time. But we're going to get literary. We're going to actually push them specs up and get literary here on Geek Therapy Radio, talking about Annihilation. That's the name of a book and a movie coming out, Annihilation. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Stick around. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. My girlfriend makes so much fun of me because I pimp all my sites so much. But guess what? It's radio. It's what you got to do. Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. We'll be right back. I am Johnny Hamburger. Stick around.
I got you stuck off the realness. We be the infamous. We be the infamous.
Dream, 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 dream. That song was stuck in my head. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for this evening, and every evening you choose to spend with Geek Therapy Radio. I really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. And again, like I said last segment, it may not be the evening that you choose to spend with me. It may be your ride home or to work. Or whenever. It might be mowing the lawn, or you might just be chilling, eating your Cheerios, or your yogurt, or on a lunch break. What is that nerd Johnny Hamburger up to? Let's tune into Geek Therapy Radio. Let's find the podcast, which is on iTunes, and Spreaker, and the iHeartRadio app, and other places. Just Google Geek Therapy Radio podcast, and it will come up, I guarantee you. Download it. Or listen to it real time, whatever you want. So I said we're going to get literary here on Geek Therapy Radio for this last segment, this shorter segment. I've got kind of a treat for you at the end of this segment. But I'll just jump right into it. What I wanted to talk about this segment are books that you have read that you thought to yourself, there's no way they can make a movie about this. And I'll use an example. I have read The Road by Cormac McCarthy at least twice. I've read No Country for Old Men. I've read Blood Meridian, which straight up, Blood Meridian is the most violent piece of art, I guess, in any medium that I've ever consumed. There's not been a movie more violent. There's not been a TV show more violent. Breaking Bad comes close. But Blood Meridian is unfathomably violent. And it's disturbing. And it's not because, and the same goes for The Road, it's disturbing. It's not because of the violence. It's not because, I'll just be frank, they're talking about smashing babies on rocks. That's already just demented. That's demented. What makes it truly disturbing is how masterfully and matter-of-factly Cormac McCarthy writes. And if you've ever read The Road, or even No Country for Old Men, or Blood Meridian, or any of the other books that he's written, that's what is profound about it, is he's just writing so matter-of-factly, and the way he just rattles off these sentences of ultra-violence, of ultra-depravity, with such nonchalantness is like, it's creepy. It's creepy. So, when I read The Road, I was like, there's no way this will become a movie. It did become a movie. But I thought it could never become a movie. I said, not because of the violence, not because of the disturbing nature of it all, but because The Road would be a movie that was 4 hours long with 30 seconds here and there of just the most demented violence and imagery you've ever imagined. So the audience would be bored of the movie because it'd be 4 hours of walking, and then they'd be grossed out to the point of vomiting, and to the point that they would lose sleep at night by little brief moments of depravity. That's why I was like, there's no way they can adapt a movie out of it. But they did. In The Road, I guess it wasn't terrible. I mean, I've only seen it once, and it wasn't very memorable. I remember the book vividly, but I don't remember the movie very much. And that's all I wanted to say. Jeff Vandermeer's novel Annihilation. There was the same argument. People who read that book were just saying, there's no way they can make this a movie. There's no way they can adapt this to the screen. The imagery, there's just no way to do it. The subject matter, there's no way to do it. The disturbing nature of it, there's no way they could do it. What rating would it be? It's just too out there. It's just too crazy to become a movie. Yet they're making it a movie. They've already begun filming. There's already a trailer. Natalie Portman is the lead in it, and it's coming out 2018. It's called Annihilation. So whenever I read a book that I think there's no way they can make this a movie, I'm just going to think, well, if they're going to make $1 off it, they're going to make a movie about it. That's the bottom line there. That's what I wanted to talk about as far as literature goes. Okay, we've come to the end of Geek Therapy Radio. If you've been paying attention, the song that I've been outroing each of these past few weeks, I'm going to play it all here. It's a song that I made a year or so ago. It's a song that I wrote. It's just a lovey-dovey song. It's nothing profound, but it's kind of a geek's love song. It's a kind of a love song that a geek would write to his geek girlfriend or whatever. It's called Supernova. And I'm going to let it play out here. I'm going to let you listen to it. I haven't shared it hardly with anybody. I put it on Facebook for maybe 30 minutes a long time ago, and then I took it down. I was like, nah, I'm not ready to share this yet. At the time, it was too personal to me. But now I don't care. I can let you listen to it. So be good to each other, geeks. I love you. Know that I love you. And please love your fellow geek. Love your fellow man. Love your fellow woman. Be good to each other and be good to yourself. If you're not good to yourself, there's no way you're going to be good to others. You might think you're being good to others, but you're not. You are enabling and pandering. So be good to yourself first so that you know how to be good to others. I love you very much. Stick around for more Geek Therapy Radio next week. I think it's going to be episode 30. Woo, 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 woo. Enjoy the song Supernova, and I will see you guys. Bye. See you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
My darling mystery, let's rewrite history. Your eyes, my sky and sea. Your love, my galaxy. I'll spend eternity, persuade divinity, for the ability to love you infinitely. too high, you're right there by my side. And when I lift my eyes, your beauty is my sky. And on those moonless nights, my love burns nova bright. Supernova, you're the brightest star